The shock hit the music world like a sudden chord that stopped mid-song. In Orlando, Florida, Sam Rivers, the legendary bassist and founding member of Limp Bizkit, passed away at the age of 48. For millions of fans, it feels as though the rhythm of an entire generation has just gone quiet. Known as the heartbeat of Limp Bizkit, Rivers was more than just a musician. He was the pulse that gave the band its weight, its gravity, its unmistakable groove. And now, that pulse has stopped. Sam Rivers was born on September 2, 1977, in Jacksonville, Florida, a city that would later become the cradle of one of the most defining sounds of the late 90s and early 2000s. From his earliest days, music ran through his veins. Before he even picked up a bass, Rivers had rhythm in his soul, learning drums under the guidance of his father, who played in a local jazz ensemble. But destiny had other plans. By the time he was a teenager, Rivers had fallen in love with the deep resonance of the bass guitar. He wasn't just playing notes, he was creating heartbeat lines that listeners could feel deep in their chests. In 1994, fate intertwined his path with that of Fred Durst, Wes Borland, John Otto, and later DJ Lethal, together forming Limp Bizkit, a band that would become a cultural phenomenon. As nu metal exploded onto the global stage, blending raw aggression with hip-hop swagger, Rivers' bass lines anchored the chaos. His tone, thick, elastic, and pulsing, gave the band's sound a spine. Tracks like Nookie, Break Stuff, My Generation, and Rollin' weren't just hits. They were sonic revolutions, each driven forward by Rivers' hypnotic low-end grooves. But beyond the fame, the headlines, and the mayhem of the late 90s rock scene, Sam was the quiet center of the storm. While others raged, Rivers radiated calm, a deep, grounding presence that kept the band's wild energy in sync. He was known among his peers as a perfectionist, precise, methodical, yet profoundly emotional. Every pluck of his strings carried intention. Every performance was a declaration of feeling. That's why today's news feels so devastating. The announcement came directly from Limp Bizkit's official channels, a message that froze fans worldwide. The post read simply but powerfully, "Sam was pure magic, peace in chaos, the soul within the sound." The band's words hit like thunder, brief, poetic, and heartbreakingly final. There was no mention of the cause of death, no details of illness, no prior warning. Just silence, confusion, and grief. Within minutes, the internet lit up. Tributes poured in from fellow musicians, journalists, and fans who grew up moshing to his rhythms. Rock radio stations across America switched their playlists to Limp Bizkit classics, message boards filled with disbelief. "This can't be real," wrote one fan on X, formerly Twitter. He was the calm, the anchor, the soul of their sound. R.I.P. Sam Rivers. Major outlets, Rolling Stone, NME, Billboard, Pitchfork, all broke the story within hours. Some called it the end of an era, others the sudden silence of nu metal's most underrated genius. The flood of emotion was overwhelming. In cities from Los Angeles to London, fans began organizing candlelight vigils, blasting My Way and rearranged in public squares as makeshift memorials. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was reverence. What makes this loss even more haunting is the mystery surrounding it. At the time of this report, no official cause of death has been disclosed. There had been no reports of illness, no whispers of declining health. Rivers had kept his personal life fiercely private, occasionally surfacing for reunion tours or festival appearances, but largely avoiding the spotlight. In his last known public photo, taken earlier this year, he appeared strong, smiling, bass in hand. A man still deeply connected to his craft, and yet only months later, he's gone. The absence of answers has fueled a wave of speculation, but above all, sorrow. For fans, it feels like losing not just a musician, but a piece of their youth. Sam's playing was the soundtrack to rebellion, heartbreak, and raw emotion. His bass lines carried the frustrations and dreams of a generation that found solace in Limp Bizkit's noise. His death leaves behind not just silence, but a gaping emotional void. Inside the industry, fellow artists have reacted with open grief. Wes Borland posted a black square with a single caption, "Brother." Fred Durst, typically vocal and fiery, has remained uncharacteristically quiet. His only gesture a simple repost of the band's original statement. DJ Lethal added, "Sam wasn't just the bass player, he was the vibe. Without him, we're all just echoes." In Orlando, where Rivers passed away, local venues that once hosted the band's earliest gigs have begun placing flowers and candles at their doors. At Jack Rabbit's, the small club where Limp Bizkit played some of their first shows, a handwritten note reads, "The groove lives on. Thank you, Sam." It's impossible to overstate the influence Rivers had on the sound of a generation. While frontmen and guitarists often grabbed the spotlight, it was Sam who laid the foundation. His bass lines were the gravitational pull that held Limp Bizkit's volatile energy together. Without him, the chaos might have imploded. Now, as fans grapple with this devastating news, the world is left with echoes. The deep rumble of his instruments still resonating through old records, live footage, and memory. His death at 48 feels cruelly premature, but his impact, profound, eternal, will reverberate long after the mourning fades. Tonight, the stage lights are dim. The amplifiers are silent. The rhythm that once made millions move has stopped. But somewhere in the low hum of a record spinning, in the vibration of a bass string struck in tribute, Sam Rivers's soul still plays on, steady, unbroken, eternal. The world of nu metal has lost its heartbeat, but its pulse, thanks to Sam, will never truly die. Orlando, Florida. The world of rock has been shaken once again. Only days after fans were left speechless by the sudden death of Limp Bizkit bassist Sam Rivers, a new wave of emotion and disbelief has erupted, this time from a shocking revelation by his wife, Melissa Rivers. In an exclusive interview with Rolling Echo magazine, Melissa broke her silence, painting a harrowing portrait of the final months of her husband's life. What she revealed has transformed grief into heartbreak, and heartbreak into outrage. Sam wasn't himself anymore, Melissa confessed, her voice trembling as the cameras rolled. He stopped talking to friends. He shut himself off from the world. He would sit by the window for hours staring out, saying things like, "I just want the noise to stop." According to the family's representative, Rivers passed away in his home after a prolonged battle with end-stage liver cirrhosis, a condition linked to years of alcohol abuse and emotional strain. Yet this detail, long kept from the public eye, has exploded like a grenade across the music industry. For years, Sam appeared the picture of composure, quiet, intense, but steady, the unshakable core of Limp Bizkit's chaotic sound. Now, with Melissa's confession, that image is being painfully recast. "He refused treatment," Melissa continued. "I tried to get him to the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. I begged him, but he said no. He didn't want to die in a hospital. He wanted to stay home with his bass and his music." She paused, tears forming. He said that was where he still felt alive. The most haunting revelation, however, came when she admitted she had concealed his illness from the public for months. "I was afraid people would think he was weak," she said quietly. "He spent his whole life being strong for others, for the band, for the fans. I thought I was protecting him. But now, I realized the truth needed to be told." The interview, published late Sunday night, set social media ablaze. Within minutes, hashtags like Ripsome Rivers and Truth Behind the Silence were trending worldwide. Fans flooded Limp Bizkit's pages with messages of love, shock, and confusion. "All this time he was suffering and we never knew," wrote one user on Instagram. "He gave us strength while losing his own." Media outlets scrambled to confirm the story. Rolling Stone called the confession a devastating twist in an already tragic loss. Billboard described it as a human story hidden beneath the noise of fame. And NME ran a headline that read simply, "The silence that screamed, Melissa Rivers breaks the wall around Sam's final battle." Close friends and bandmates have begun to speak out, their grief now intertwined with regret. Wes Borland, Limp Bizkit's guitarist, posted a black-and-white photo of Sam taken during a 1999 tour in Berlin, his bass slung low, eyes closed, lost in the music. The caption read, "We thought you were just tired. We didn't see the storm inside you." Fred Durst, still silent in public, was reported to have broken down during a private rehearsal in Los Angeles. According to sources close to the band, Durst stood in front of Sam's empty amp and couldn't start playing. DJ Lethal later shared a video snippet from that moment. No sound, just Durst's bowed head and the caption, "Peace in chaos, always." But the reaction hasn't stopped there. Music journalists have begun revisiting the band's catalog, uncovering eerie premonitions in the lyrics. In Rearranged, Sam's melodic bass lines pulse beneath words like, "Just leave me alone, I'm fed up with your excuses." A cry that now feels hauntingly prophetic. In interviews from as early as 2019, Rivers had hinted at exhaustion. "The fame thing, it wears you down," he told a podcast. "You give everything, and after a while, you wonder what's left." Those remarks, largely overlooked at the time, now echo with painful clarity. Behind the stage lights and the thundering anthems, it appears Sam Rivers was quietly disintegrating, a man trapped between public expectation and private despair. Melissa's revelation has peeled back the curtain on that hidden suffering, transforming the narrative of his death from mystery to tragedy. Fans have begun piecing together fragments from recent appearances. A viral clip from Limp Bizkit's performance at Download Festival 2024 now feels like an omen. In it, Sam stands slightly apart from the others, his movements slower, his face pale beneath the lights. Commenters are flooding the video anew. "Look at his hands. He's struggling to hold the bass. How did we not see this?" one wrote. Another added, "He was saying goodbye and we didn't know it." As the revelations unfold, the emotional fallout has been seismic. Memorial murals have appeared overnight in Jacksonville, Orlando, and Los Angeles, with fans spray-painting his name beneath the words, "Pure Magic," a reference to Limp Bizkit's tribute post. Vigils have turned into spontaneous concerts, bass players across the world sharing videos of themselves covering My Generation and Boiler in his honor. Industry insiders say this could mark a major turning point in how the rock world addresses mental and physical health. Sam's story exposes the darker truth behind the music machine, wrote Variety critic Jonah Kells. The artists who fuel the noise often suffer in silence until it's too late. Meanwhile, speculation continues to swirl around why the truth was hidden for so long. Some fans blame management for keeping up appearances during the band's recent tours. Others argue that Rivers himself demanded secrecy, his pride, his professionalism, his desire to protect the band's image all converging into a final act of control. But for Melissa, the weight of silence has turned into something unbearable. "I loved him too much to tell the truth," she told Rolling Echo. "Now I love him too much not to." As the world processes this new chapter in Sam Rivers' story, one thing has become painfully clear. The man whose bass gave voice to fury, defiance, and chaos was fighting a private war of his own, one that few saw and none could stop. The revelation has left fans not only mourning his death, but questioning how such quiet suffering could exist in the midst of so much sound. It was never just music for Sam Rivers. It was architecture. Every note he played was a brick in the cathedral of sound he helped build, each bass line a vibration that defined an era. And as the world now looks back at his extraordinary journey, the spotlight turns toward the artistry that made him not just a member of Limp Bizkit, but one of the pillars of nu metal itself. By the late 2000s, the landscape of heavy music had shifted. Nu metal, once a dominant force, had begun to fade from mainstream radar. Many thought the movement was dead, a relic of the early 2000s rage culture. But in 2009, when Limp Bizkit announced their reunion, it was Sam Rivers who stood at the heart of that revival, his quiet intensity grounding the band's explosive return. "We wanted to remind the world what real energy felt like," Rivers said in a rare interview that year. "Not nostalgia, electricity." That electricity became Gold Cobra, 2011, an album that roared with renewed fury. Critics were divided, but fans heard something unmistakable: Sam's fingerprint. His bass didn't just hold the rhythm, it snarled, it strutted, it taunted. Tracks like Shotgun and Douchebag carried that unmistakable Rivers groove, a thick, rolling pulse that seemed to rumble up from the floor and crawl straight into the listener's bloodstream. Even amid Fred Durst's signature chaos, it was Sam's bass that gave the sound its swagger, its density, its menace. And yet, the years that followed would show just how restless Rivers truly was. He wasn't content with nostalgia or repetition. Beneath his calm demeanor, there burned a need to explore, to evolve. That hunger gave birth to Sleep Killers, a supergroup project that would reveal a side of him the world had never quite seen. Teaming up with vocalist Damian Starkey of Burn Season, guitarist Adam Latif, and Saliva's Bobby Amaru, Rivers dove headfirst into darker, more cinematic territory. When their self-titled album dropped in March 2019, it didn't just surprise listeners, it blindsided them. Gone were the jumpy riffs and teenage angst of early 2000s nu metal. In their place was something heavier, moodier, soaked in atmosphere. Critics described it as grunge meeting industrial metal in a fever dream. But the real centerpiece was, again, Sam's bass. Deep, breathing, alive. It throbbed like a living creature beneath each song, giving the record a pulse that felt human and haunted at once. Starkey later recalled the studio sessions as almost spiritual. "Sam had this way of disappearing into the music," he said. "You'd look over and he'd be standing there, eyes closed, fingers barely moving, and somehow the whole room would start to shake. He wasn't playing, he was channeling." That was the essence of Sam Rivers, discipline wrapped in mystery. Even when he wasn't the loudest presence in the room, his influence dominated it. Behind the curtains of Sleep Killers' grinding riffs and ominous hooks, there was a craftsman meticulously shaping tone, space, and silence. His creative process bordered on obsessive. He would spend hours re-recording a single note, chasing the perfect vibration, the perfect decay. "I don't want it to sound played," he once said. "I want it to sound alive." When Still Sucks arrived in 2021, it was more than a comeback. It was a resurrection. The album dropped unexpectedly, as if the band had risen from the shadows of nostalgia to reclaim their throne. Fans worldwide reacted with awe. The opening bass rumble of Out of Style hit like a seismic wave, a declaration that Limp Bizkit was still a living force. "That bass," one review wrote, "sounds like it's dragging the earth itself." Behind the scenes, though, Rivers' health was already starting to falter. Insiders later revealed that he worked through fatigue and pain during the album sessions, refusing to slow down. He'd show up to the studio pale, exhausted, one engineer recalled. But the second he put his hands on the bass, he was transformed. It was like the music refueled him. The transformation reached its peak on stage. Those who witnessed Limp Bizkit's 2023 and 2024 tours describe a man seemingly reborn, moving less, but commanding more. He had evolved from the wild energy of the late 90s into something almost shamanic. Every pluck, every pause was deliberate, hypnotic. Fans began to call him the Pulse, a nickname that spread across fan forums and backstage chatter alike. Then came the final performance. Leeds Festival, August 24, 2025. For those who were there, it has already entered legend. The sun dipped behind the clouds as the band took the stage. The crowd, tens of thousands strong, roared with anticipation. And when Rivers walked out, bass strapped low, the noise became deafening. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. During break stuff, something uncanny happened. Witnesses say Sam closed his eyes and played with a strange calm, as if he were playing not to the crowd, but to himself. He was smiling. One fan later posted, "It looked like peace." When the final chord of Take a Look Around rang out, he lifted his hand in a quiet wave and disappeared backstage. No one knew it then, but that would be his last bow. Now, in the days since his passing, footage from that night has gone viral, dissected frame by frame, replayed millions of times. Viewers notice the small things, the longer pauses between songs, the faint tremor in his hand, the way he looked at his bandmates before walking off. "It's like he knew," one comment reads. "He was saying goodbye through the strings." Even in death, Rivers' work continues to reverberate. Younger musicians are citing him as a key influence, not for his fame, but for his restraint, his tone, his discipline. Bass forums are flooded with tributes, fans analyzing his setups, his amp settings, his use of harmonics. It's as if, in the wake of loss, the world has finally stopped to listen, truly listen, to what he was doing all along. Sam Rivers didn't just play bass. He defined the emotional undercurrent of a genre built on rebellion and chaos. His art was a study in contrasts, aggression and grace, fury and focus, noise and silence. Every project, from Limp Bizkit's mainstream triumphs to Sleepkiller's underground experimentation, carried that unmistakable fingerprint, the sense that something powerful and unseen was thrumming beneath the surface. And that's what made him unforgettable. Not the fame, not the headlines, but the pulse, the invisible current that connected his instrument to the souls of those who listened. Prima che diventasse il cuore pulsante dei Limp Bizkit, prima che il suo nome si trasformasse in un eco che risuona nei palchi del mondo, Sam Rivers era soltanto un ragazzo solitario di Jacksonville, Florida. Un bambino che trovava rifugio nei suoni perché le parole non bastavano. La sua infanzia non fu mai un racconto felice, era fatta di silenzi lunghi, di sere trascorse ad ascoltare il rumore della pioggia contro le finestre, di sogni troppo grandi per una casa troppo piccola. Eppure, proprio da quel vuoto nacque qualcosa di raro, una sensibilità che avrebbe dato forma a una delle linee di basso più potenti della storia del nu metal. Nato il 2 settembre 1977, Sam crebbe in un quartiere operaio, dove la vita era più dura che gentile. Suo padre, un musicista jazz, passava lunghi periodi lontano, suonando in club pieni di fumo e solitudine. Sua madre, silenziosa e severa, lavorava instancabilmente per mantenere la famiglia. In quell'ambiente instabile, il piccolo Sam imparò presto il valore della fuga, e la sua fuga fu la musica. Non attraverso la voce, perché Sam parlava poco, ma attraverso il suono profondo e caldo degli strumenti a fiato. Il primo che abbracciò fu la tuba, in una piccola orchestra della Arlington Middle School. A 11 anni, seduto tra compagni che sognavano di diventare rockstar o giocatori di football, Sam era diverso. Mentre gli altri cercavano la gloria, lui cercava soltanto un posto dove respirare. Lì, nel metallo freddo della tuba, trovò il primo ritmo della sua vita. Il suono grave e rotondo del suo strumento diventò per lui un rifugio, un battito cardiaco che poteva controllare, un linguaggio che nessuno gli aveva mai insegnato, ma che capiva perfettamente. Fu in quegli anni che nella sua vita entrò una figura destinata a cambiarne il corso. John Otto. Otto era più grande di lui di qualche anno, un batterista con un'anima jazz e un talento precoce. Suonava come se il tempo stesso fosse una materia da modellare, e per Sam, che lo osservava con ammirazione quasi religiosa, quell'energia era magnetica. John mi ha insegnato che il ritmo non è solo tempo, è vita, avrebbe raccontato anni dopo. Molti, negli anni successivi, credevano che Sam e John fossero cugini, legati da un vincolo di sangue. In realtà, come lo stesso Rivers ammise in un documentario girato durante la registrazione del secondo album dei Limp Bizkit, quella parentela era solo un'illusione nata dall'amicizia d'infanzia. «Pensavamo di essere parenti», disse con un sorriso malinconico. «Ma poi abbiamo capito che né mio padre né sua madre avevano alcun legame. Forse eravamo fratelli in un altro modo, attraverso la musica. E forse era proprio così. La musica era l'unica vera famiglia che Sam avesse conosciuto. La casa era silenziosa, fredda e spesso vuota. Le discussioni tra i genitori lo lasciavano con la sensazione di non appartenere a nessuno, ma quando John gli mise per la prima volta una bacchetta in mano e gli disse di sentire, non contare, Sam capì che la vita poteva avere un ritmo anche quando sembrava ferma. Durante gli anni, alla Bishop Kenny High School, il giovane Rivers attraversò una fase di ricerca continua. All'inizio si dedicò alla chitarra, attratto dai riff elettrici e dalla possibilità di essere ascoltato, ma ben presto capì che quello non era il suo posto. «Troppa luce, troppa voce», disse una volta a un compagno. Il suo insegnante di musica, un uomo severo ma dotato di uno sguardo attento, gli suggerì di provare con il basso. «Hai mani grandi e cuore profondo. Ti serve uno strumento che risuoni come te». Quella frase, semplice e profetica, cambiò tutto. Il primo basso che Sam toccò era vecchio, con le corde rigide e il corpo scheggiato, ma appena lo fece vibrare, qualcosa dentro di lui si accese. Il suono era denso, viscerale, vivo. Non c'era bisogno di gridare, il basso parlava da solo. Ogni nota era come un segreto sussurrato al mondo, una confessione che nessuno capiva davvero, ma tutti sentivano.